What's going on, everybody? Today is Monday, October 23rd. It's 10 a.m. on the East Coast, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And with us today, we've got Junmi, Beth, Andy, and Aaron, and I'm Brian. And I just was thinking to myself that I need to start adding that to the top of the shows because you know what? We're growing our audience so crazy on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which has been a big push as well. That I figure, you know what, there's quite a few people who are now listening to us and don't get to see all our lovely faces. So it's always cool to tell you who we got in the crew, the DOS crew, as we call it, the Daily AI Show crew. So if you hear us say DOS crew, that's what we mean. And today, it's a new week. I'm excited. Today, we're talking about a SWOT analysis for AI in sales. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, just sort of diving into, you know, how AI is going to is already impacting sales and just sort of moving through those, you know, each one of those letters in the acronym. I'm excited about this because I currently work in sales, work for a company called Scale Consulting. And this is basically what I do. I'm always focused on, you know, where can we make improvements as the AI strategist within the company. And of course, I get like a front row seat to actually watching this stuff be implemented in sales. So it's exciting for me to talk about this. But before we sort of jump in and dive in, does anybody have any, you know, like first thoughts on this? You know, the opposite of the TLDR. Does anybody have the first thoughts on this they've been thinking about and they want to share, or do you guys want to just dive into the acronym as it is?
Well,
I will say one thing about it. I look forward to the day when I can literally outsource all of my sales to an AI and not have to do it at all as a business owner.
So, Brian, you'll be able to tell us, you know, what is actually working in the world of sales because of your, you know, beautiful vantage from Scaled there. The SWOT approach to it was kind of a strategic analysis typically. So, you know, using SWOT as a framework is very interesting. And so the last one, T, the threats, I want to just put a placeholder in there for the threat of counterselling and disinformation against your brand or against your person or company. Because I actually have some personal experience with the company that I was a part of where this kind of rumored, you know, insinuation in the, you know, milieu actually hurt our product and its success in the marketplace. So really? That can be counter sales, and that's a threat. AI can do it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want to dive into that more. Welcome, Carl. Carl's with us as well. Carl, we're talking today about sort of a SWOT analysis, if you will, of AI in sales. And we were just sort of, you know, kicking things off. You know, not to put you on the spot, do you have any thoughts before we sort of dive into this analysis or anything you want to make sure we hit today?
I think I was actually looking at this yesterday night, and we're currently testing out Salesforce Einstein. And it still goes back to my point, though. It all comes to the data around sales, right? Because to me, sales data is spread out, especially when you talk about SWOT analysis. Different SaaS tools have different like program, like I guess functions. Like Gong would be one, Salesforce would be another, Zoom Info, Outreach. All these different tools serve different purposes. So how can you it's always been my AI challenge is, how do you collect information from all these tools to make a holistic analysis and get holistic insight if each of these tools has their own AI tool that they want you to use?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to jump in on that, Beth, since he was talking about Einstein? I know you're our Salesforce guru. Any insights on that part of it?
My Salesforce expertise rises every time someone refers to me.
As the guru? Yeah. As far as I am, you are.
I agree.
Well, I think what Carl's saying is right, and Salesforce's case that they're making is do everything through us. Now, you may have better tools, and there are ways to bring the information into Salesforce. But what Salesforce is really the goal that they're really shooting for is if you do it all within the Salesforce ecosystem, then we can completely take care of you.
Which,
And
I mean, listen,
that may be what, like, there may be more. I'm just familiar with the Salesforce, right, ecosystem, but that may be a play that other people are making too, right? That like I mean, Amazon maybe with their AWS, like, okay, just keep all your data here, and we've got everything. But to Carl's point, what are the bridges? Who's coming out with the bridges that are going to make those pieces of information, even though they're still in your private ecosystem, play nicely together?
Right.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, look, Salesforce is doing it, HubSpot's doing it, probably every other CRM is trying to work towards that. It makes sense, right? Like, if all your stuff is in our ecosystem, why would you ever leave? And if it gets deeper and deeper into the cross functionality of using that data, and you layer on top of that, natural language processing, and it's not just like so-so natural language, but it's actual good natural language. And what I mean by that, for anybody listening, is I mean like a Google search inside Salesforce that's legitimately going to actually answer the question you have. It could almost be detrimental at this point when people deploy, or these companies are deploying these natural language search bars, if you will, that aren't, they have the name, they've called them AI, and they're not really. They're like just a basic semantic search, which in itself can be good, but it actually could be more detrimental to the brand, in my opinion, because if it's poor, it almost, you weren't expecting it as the end user, and now you've put something in front of the end user, and it's getting worse for them. They're having a worse customer experience, and that can actually turn people off. So it's interesting, and maybe part of what we could talk about is it's interesting how deploying AI too quickly in a sales solution can, in effect, actually doom a future company who's trying to maybe get to market quickly with some of these AI solutions for positioning. It may end up being their downfall. I don't know that will be the case. I don't have any use cases for that, but it certainly could, because God knows you can move too quick. And so there's always going to be that balance, if you will, for any company out there that's saying, how fast do we go to market with this AI solution? And is it good enough? Does it meet the minimum criteria of making the user experience X amount percentage better? And if it doesn't, across the board, without exception, it probably doesn't need to be deployed, because just having nice bells and whistles that just frustrate people, I don't think it's going to make the user experience any better, and it's going to turn people away from it. So something to consider for sure.
One thing, though, I think, and this keeps on my brain for like the past like several months. So, like I was mentioning about Salesforce, I can't find one lick of how to actually use this. So we've got access to it, but I was like, I'm looking at YouTube, I'm looking at all these places, like, how do I use this? And all I've gotten was things from 3 years ago, so that doesn't count, and like these nice videos that show what could be done, but doesn't actually show you how to do it. And then I think, to me, what's worse is, and this isn't just Salesforce, this is everything across the board, everyone's racing to integrate AI into their tech in one form or another, but they never ask themselves, A, do we need it? B, how does everybody be able to implement it and actually implement it in a useful way for their situation? And how do you educate everybody on how to do that if your just goal is to race to implement it as fast as you can? Where, like, I don't know if any of you remember it was maybe a small little bit where everyone tried to copy Google search into their product, but it never worked. So it's either you use Google, oh no, you go here and we can do search, and we can do search. Like, no, your search is terrible. Your search is terrible. Your search is terrible. So why would I right now use HubSpot, ChatSpot, when I can just go to ChatGPT, which is better than ChatSpot, or you've just an API wrapper on it?
Right. So So I think the speed question brings up a serious threat, and it's a tension threat, right? So like the threat is speed. If you're too slow, that's going to be a problem. If you're too fast, that's going to be a problem. Now, that implies like there's one sweet spot. I think the sweet spot is like a mile wide, right? Like, so you don't have to feel like, oh crap. But you do need to be watching and having like do some process analysis, do some business process analysis, find your actual use cases where that's going to be where you're building on your strengths, right? Or that you're shoring up a weakness. But yeah, I think that's a real key. And also for Salesforce, if you want to know how to do something in Salesforce, they have an amazing training system called Trailhead. YouTube is probably not the best place initially, but
I have to pay for that, don't I?
Nope, 100% free.
Just pay Beth to do it for you.
No, like 100% free. If you want to know, if I'm talking about business analysis, and you're saying I don't, Trailhead is not expensive.
No, extensive.
Extensive. Thank you. Yes. Trailhead is extensive. When I talk about business analysis, if you're like, I don't know what that is, go and do like an hour on business analysis in Trailhead, and you'll like it's an amazing resource. I'm done now.
No, I agree with that. Well, listen, before we get too deep dive in the show, because we're deep into the show. I don't know what words just came out of my mouth. I'm talking faster than I'm processing them. We're about 1/3 of the way into the show. So I do want to make sure we do actually do a bit of a SWOT on this one. So let's start with strengths. And, one of the things I had in the, like, what we'll cover is how can AI automate repetitive tasks, provide data-driven insights, and enhance customer engagement in sales? We've sort of talked about a little bit of this, but I want to just sort of kick this, the strengths part of it off by saying, that first part is really, to me, the golden nugget, and that is talking about repetitive tasks. Now, this can be applied outside of sales, but since we're talking about AI in sales, that's where we'll focus. There are so many boring, mundane, repetitive tasks that a typical sales rep is tasked with doing on a weekly, daily, monthly process or a schedule. And that's where I think that's your low-hanging fruit. That's where it's really easy to go in. Now, depending on your role and depending on how big your organization is within sales, really will determine how many hats you wear in sales. It is very possible for somebody to be the person who both sources and does all the prospecting and is building lists themselves inside of Sales Navigator and maybe inside their CRM. And they're doing all the prospecting. Then they're doing all the messaging and they're trying to personalize the messaging. And then they may actually go through all the process. They may even close the deal and write the SOW that the client has eventually done. And then, to be perfectly honest, on a really small company, they may also be customer success to a certain point, right? They may go the whole thing. In larger companies, that's obviously going to be broken out to things like SDRs and AEs and things like this, where people have specific roles and certain parts of the sales funnel are going to be their job specifically. But at some point, they're going to be handing this off. So where AI can be very, very helpful is in any part of that. So it's great for taking care of some repetitive tasks. Hey, if you got to look up one company and you need this criteria, just the other day, I was working in industries and personas and then value props. If that has to be done, it doesn't matter. It's like, look, this is my niche and this is where I'm going to be focusing and prospecting. If that has to be done for 20 companies or one, that's a repeatable task. That's something that now could be taken off of your plate to a certain point before the human in the loop has to come back in. To be done because it's repetitive, it could be replaced by AI. Just think about the amount of hours that one small replacement in a typical sales process or team would save in terms of hours. And it's like in a team of like 20 SDRs, having one verified repeatable task taken off their plate is hours and hours and hours, especially when it comes to research, because even with Google, it can take a really long time to do it. Now this can be replaced with a 3, 4, 5-part automation. That alone could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in saved money and an increased ROI simply because people are able to get to the personalization faster. And to me, that's a massive win. So it really does come down to these, it's AI, fix everything, do everything for me. Well, it's actually a series of these big tasks built up over time, and it's one after the other until you have a team that's operating using the most human intervention and not using somebody who's got 10, 15 years of experience doing a repeatable task that they don't want to do anyway. We can replace that now. So that's my big strength there. Anybody want to jump in with another strength?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to tag on to that, Brian, because for me, I run a one-person business, and so I do everything. And when it comes to finding prospective clients, I've got a sales background, but I've been in marketing for 18 years, but I haven't forgotten how to do the basics. Trying to compile a list of prospects, understand who they are, what they do, and as you said, personalize some kind of outreach to them, whether it's an email or a cold call or whatever. That is a pain in the posterior big time to have to do. I don't have somebody else doing that for me. So, I've seen small snippets of tools that are sort of heading down that path of AI. I haven't seen anything yet that probably doesn't cost $5,000 a month that's good, but it's definitely something I think would be an awesome value add, or like if I could buy a tool like that was reasonably priced, that would be a huge advantage to my business. And, as I said, I'm just a one-person business, whether it's lots of other small businesses or big ones, that kind of thing by itself would be a big strength. So definitely a positive on my point of view for that.
Absolutely.
And just to come in on the other side, the threat of that is the people who do your same service who are using it. Right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, I'll save more of that, Beth, because there's definitely a threat there. But yeah, there's some threats there. We'll get back to that. Any other strengths that you guys want to point out? Aaron, what you're saying is exactly the types of stuff that we're trying to sell for at scale. That's what I focus on almost exclusively these days. It's why I built a prompt library for sales folks, because these are people often think, and they're not wrong for it, thinking that ChatGPT is great for writing an email. It'll help me write an email, and it will. But what they're not thinking about is all the ways that it can role play with them. It's not thinking about the 8-week series that it's putting together to help an SDR who's struggling a little bit, who's a great employee, but just is behind their counterparts in terms of being able to close the deal. And it's helping that manager, that leader, put together an 8-week plan of action that they can deploy immediately with that specific employee in order to help them get up to speed and become, the best version of themselves. I guarantee you, we talk to salespeople all the time in my company. They're not thinking like that. They're thinking, oh, this will help me write an email. And they're like, yes. And also, it will do what you always say, Beth, in like for improv, right? Yes. And yes. Yeah. And it will also do stuff too, right? So there's so many.
Another strength. Another strength that occurs to me is that the advanced LLMs like ChatGPT-4 and Claude 2 have real evaluative capabilities. So let's take an inside salesperson who's basically doing phone calling, and they're following a script that's been used and tuned and done for a long time, but who's actually reviewing and evaluating the effectiveness of that script. And AI could do that, even on an ad hoc basis. Like, give it the script and just ask it to give you ideas about how this could be improved. And so I can imagine one strength of AI is its ability to apply a very broad range of knowledge and insight and reasoning to any particular application or any document even. And so here, a great strength of GPT is its versatility, but it's up to us to figure out how to apply it. What do we ask the AI to do? And in sales, I think, getting rid of jankiness in the sales scripts is an important one.
And that's one of the things that the vision for Einstein is, and that you wouldn't need to prompt like, talk to me about the most recent interactions we've had, talk to me about their sales pattern, talk to me, right? Those are ways that Salesforce has been able to do stuff in the past. But the vision, my understanding is the vision is like, okay, I'm going to make this phone call, talk to me, right?
Yep.
So like all of that analysis is part of it. So it's not even just evaluating the sales script, it's personalizing it. It's like, these are the keys that you're going to hit for this particular client based on all the information we have.
Which I think, Beth, just on your point about that analysis, I've been always pushing the Gong summary and then the summary of summaries, and having the ability to analyze whole sets of, say, sales calls or sales information, and then making a recommendation out of that is a huge strength. That's a really, because there's, unless you have tens to hundreds of people being able to go through that data, now you can't, like, technically you can in a very short amount of time, if you fed it correctly and use some automations that you can pull from all these different tools.
That's a good point, Brian, because I remember, sorry, Carl, my apologies.
No
I remember years ago, when this technology first became available, I was running Google Ads for clients, and we started using phone call recordings. So when someone clicked on one of our ads, filled in a form, called in, we would record the phone call between the prospect and the salesperson. And myself and my account manager, I was running the accounts, he was the ad campaigns, he was doing the sales stuff. We would sit down and often listen to the calls between the prospect and the client, and then give feedback to the customer. But that's not a scalable process for two people to do. If you can start taking that kind of stuff, especially with the modern day technology, where I think a lot of the phone calls can go through a VoIP system and be recorded from start to finish. Yes, being able to push that stuff into an AI and getting feedback from it, I think that's a huge strength for a sales organization.
Yeah, and listen, I think so on that point, we've had people bring this up before. I can't remember his name, but he's in law, and he talks a lot about AI and law.
William
What was
Love.
his name?
William Love.
William Love. So he was saying, like, look, there's implications here as far as like letting people know, and all this kind of stuff about things being recorded. But outside of that, if we table that to a side and say you're doing whatever either your company says is approved or whatever, let's just think about this. If you're, all to your points, if you're an SDR right now, or you're maybe an AE, an account executive, because they may more likely be on like a discovery call. Let's just say you're on a discovery call. Right now, if all of us right now, all six of us were on a call together, and maybe I'm the AE and all five of you are from the company that I'm doing the discovery call. Right now, we're all doing this, which is, it's human to think, I'm listening to Brian talk, but I'm also thinking about the thing that I want to say next. And I'm starting to formulate that response, or, oh, he's saying this about whatever. And I have something to say about that. And so naturally, we cannot focus 100% on two different things at once. It's very, very hard to do. So we're thinking about how we want to formulate our response while also trying to actively listen. Guess who does an amazing job of actively listening? Freaking AI does. It won't miss a thing. So if you want to be a great SDR, if you want to get better at your craft, if you want to get better at any calls that you're doing, take every single call you have within the limits of what you're allowed to do for your company and law and all that kind of stuff. All right. Put it in there and simply ask, what did I miss? What did I miss? What questions, what concepts were brought up that I did not accurately respond to and give a good answer? It will tell you what you missed, what you breezed over because you had your ideas of what to say next. Then you say, give me an email that I can send back to the client addressing the things that I missed, as well as the follow-up keys. Do you know how good that feels as the client to get that back, that they get this summary and you're like, listen, we talked about this, this, and this. These are the key action items to take away. Also, I realized that you asked about this and I did not give you a good answer. Here's my answer to that. Blah, 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 blah. That level of personalization, and all it really takes is just simply taking that transcript and asking what you missed. Where were the blank spots in that call? That could be massive. So literally any sales representative right now can use that tool. You do not have to wait for your superiors, as long as it's okay within the range of what you're allowed to do, right? You can do this on your side. And so, Aaron, to your point, like, you don't have to wait anymore to have the time with the manager, which might only happen once a week. Maybe it's select calls. Maybe it wasn't your best call. Maybe it was your worst call. And now you can do it literally with every call and get better by the end of the day. That's a massive improvement.
Yeah.
I was really, really, really pushing. You know how, Brian, you said, oh, you can do this today. I was like, hey, I can set up an automation for you that it just shows up on your, like, a private Slack. Like, it'll just show up there. You don't have to do anything. You actually don't have to actually copy paste. Like, you don't have to do anything. You just look at it. Yeah, I don't know how else I can deliver it to you. I don't know how to force feed you this, but tell me what you want. And it's interesting because, so here's a fascinating thing. We've got a whole set of salespeople, and I'm like, hey, here's this automation I'm going to set for you. All you literally have to do is like look. And it's like crickets. And I was like, I don't know how else to tell people this. I don't like, that's the challenge, is like, I feel like it's something separate that Carl's working on that I don't have time to look at. But I'm like, but it, like, you're gonna do this stuff anyway. I'm just making it super, super easy. And maybe that goes back to a previous discussion. Sorry.
Well, you're already talking about weaknesses. So you've done a great job of transitioning us into weaknesses, which is adoption. Adoption is so hard in sales. It's hard across the board in a lot of places, but people don't want to change the way they've done things in the past. You get a 20 plus veteran of doing sales. They don't want to know my LinkedIn strategy of how to build a personal brand. They'll be polite to me, but they're forgetting about what I'm saying as I'm saying it to them.
Yes.
And Carl had absolutely been in the same place you have, where I've been like, here you go. It's all right here. And I'll get back and like, I had somebody at a recent client and they said, it's not you. Adoption is really hard at this company. I said, well, it's good to know that it's not me, because I don't think I could say this any clearer. And it's like a good email sequence. It says it takes like 8 to 10 to 12 touches. It's the same thing. It's just going back, and it has to be repetitive and consistent. And you're going to say the same thing 10 times. I know I have. And it's like, all of a sudden I'll get a DM from somebody on LinkedIn and they'll be like, hey, this is 2 months in the training. And they'll be like, hey, you know that thing you said? I tried it today. Freaking amazing. It's got to be the 10th time I've said this, but that's what it takes. That's what it takes for it to stick.
Right. So I think we've gotten weaknesses. Do we got time to cover the other two parts we got here? Or
Let me throw 2 30-second weaknesses in to round it out, guys. So things like data privacy concerns, are we making sure that they're covered our ass there? And also, is there a potential for biased algorithms? That's from my little buddy ChatGPT on the side there. But 2 good points. Something to think about.
Yeah, nothing worse than getting a good hallucination that sounds real, and then putting that into an email and then having the client come back to you and go, what are you talking about? That's not right.
I'm going to shift over, Junmi, at your suggestion, to opportunities, and just mention that I think there's a big opportunity to develop research assistants that are lead generators. So against local news and everything that is like a sensor network for you, that if you're, say you're in the construction industry and you want to see the very earliest indication that, hey, this is a possible opportunity for us, that research assistant will surface those for you automatically.
Right. It's something to help you, like you said, your research and especially data validation, right? Or your information source validation. I think that's an excellent opportunity there.
Yeah.
And I'll add in onboarding is an opportunity, especially in sales. We're seeing right now, we're projecting. This is my CEO saying this, who's a sales expert. I'm not a sales expert, so I'm just sort of leaning on Jake Dunlap here. But he said many times, and to clients, I've been on calls where he said his clients, look, the typical onboarding time is about 90 days. That's just across the board. It might be more, it might be less for some clients, depending on how difficult the job is. He feels very strongly that in the very near future, so definitely within 2023, 2024, that onboarding time is going to go down to 30 days or perhaps less. When you look at all the tools, all the opportunities we have for AI tools right now, I believe that one of the areas that you're going to see the biggest jump in is onboarding, getting a brand new SDR from day one, maybe coming out of college or just changing jobs or whatever, to actually selling and, pushing deals through the pipeline in 30 days where it would normally take 90, because some of these tools, whether because they're immediate and they're flowing on the side of your screen as the conversation is happening in real time, because that's definitely here and also coming, or it's doing all the research and just getting up to speed, or it's creating an amazing chatbot internally that's training them on everything they need to know that they would have normally had to have asked their superior about, the manager or whatever, and now they can get instant answers. So they're learning at their speed as opposed to the pace set by the company in the past. So again, getting back to that extreme personalization, but at the level of the actual individual rep in sales. That's a massive opportunity. And then also, just really quick, an opportunity is being able to do more with less. And that could transition us into threats because people are worried about jobs. But the reality is, you're going to be able to see teams who truly put this stuff in play. They are going to be able to optimize their team and get the same results with less heads and beds. And so perhaps that transitions us into threats if anybody wants to bring that up or whatever. So maybe back to what you were saying, Andy, about threats.
Oh,
or not.
I want to talk about another opportunity, actually.
Go for it.
While you were speaking about it, and this has to do with the opportunity pipeline and the factors that are human assigned that say what the probability of closing such an opportunity is, that lead into financial planning and analysis for the company and are really, really essential. And a lot of those, the establishment of what the probability of closing is, and where it's going to end up closing in time, those factors are really kind of subjective when articulated by humans. AI could do sentiment analysis of the actual exchanges that are happening in email and voice, and do something a lot more sophisticated in terms of assigning that probability, and that's going to improve the forecasting for the corporation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is something actually Salesforce has been doing for a while. That's not part of the new stuff.
Oh, no kidding. Out. They already do that. They look at the pace of the communications and provide a number.
There's an integration with Gmail or Outlook, depending on what your preference is. And then, all that information comes in.
Okay, cool. I just want to let you know here as a qualification that I was at Dreamforce 7.
I know, it's so
okay. So my experience with Salesforce is kind of dated.
I think we're like TLDR time, yeah?
Oh, well, then let's wrap it up with covering threats. What's one threat that you can identify with this process?
For the customer or prospect, I believe this will increase the amount of communications to you, whether it's emails, whether it's phone calls, whether it's whatever they send you, it'll just exponentially increase that, which means there'll be more opportunities for me to ignore that. But there's just a lot more of it that's going to be coming because it's become so easy to do this. And if you look at what we talked about today, all the insights, that will lead to, hey, let's just blanket our prospects with all these things that now we can do.
Yeah. For me, there's a flip side of the sales getting to know me really well. Right. The difference between I have a perfect opportunity for you and I know enough about you to push you to think that this is a perfect opportunity to you. That I think is not a mile wide. I think that's just like a little tiny line. And, we hope ethical people don't cross it. But I believe that's a threat and something to be aware of as a consumer.
Okay. So here's a threat as a chief operating officer, I get a lot of inbound, attempts to reach me and with personalization and all that sort of thing. Thankfully, I don't have that email account anymore, so I don't look at that. But imagine that I have an AI trained to be a gatekeeper, so that any inbound thing, they're going to get an invitation as an email response or a telephone, response. They're going to get an invitation to talk to my AI to pre-qualify them, and so I'm creating a moat that will not let you in, no matter how good your AI is, if it's not really, really carefully tailored to what I need. And I only tell my AI what I need at this point. The salesperson is going to just hear, sorry, it didn't pass muster, and so you can't speak to him.
That's an interesting idea. I like the idea of AI trying to get in and also AI being the gatekeeper that's keeping them out. That's a solid point. It's just AI fighting with AI. Until finally one of them pushes over the edge. I don't know. It's solid. I'll throw my threat real quick, which is, one of the ones we had in the show notes was high cost of implementation. And actually, that's not my threat. My threat is companies getting maybe a little swindled by the idea of some big, amazing AI solution and deploying or spending a lot of money on the implementation. I'm not saying there's not some amazing solutions in the marketplace right now. I'm just saying be careful, because what you spend $10,000 deploying today could be obsolete tomorrow, where you're moving so fast that is a threat. That could be a lot of money lost for a company. That's not to say they should stand still either. I just think, again, going back to my original point about look for really small wins that don't really cost money at all, other than a little bit of time or working with a small consultancy or something like that to help you put those small wins in place. It does not have to be these massive, $10, $20, $50,000 solutions, because it's moving so fast that I fear a company doing that and putting all their eggs in that basket may in turn find out 6 months from now in a 12-month contract that it's no longer the tool they need because of X, Y, and Z. So that's a threat for sure.
Yeah, my threat's probably around job displacement. Like when this technology gets good enough to do a better job at selling than you or I, there are going to be people who will lose jobs out of that. And, that's for better or for worse. I think that's definitely going to happen. So, yeah, if you're not, I guess it's the old thing that in the marketing world we're talking at the moment, if you're not competing against AI, you're competing against a marketing person using AI. So if you're a salesperson not using AI, you're probably going to still fall behind the boat pretty quickly. Speaking of which, I want to make a quick pitch, and he didn't expect me to do this. Brian's company sells something called the AI Sales Prompt Pro for $50. Go check it out on the Scaled website. It actually looks pretty cool. I'm thinking of buying it myself, and it's just all sorts of different prompts for helping with different sales stuff.
I may know a guy that can help you out with that, Aaron. little wink, nod.
Yeah, but for the rest of you, go check it out.
For the rest of you, I don't know all of you, but I know Aaron. Who didn't we get to for threats?
Oh, I'll just wrap up by going along with Carl, Beth, and Andy. You're going to have a balance, because the threat for me is, I'm with Andy. I want the barrier. If I was, just the regular customer or client, I'd want that barrier. You're going to see AI versus AI. That's probably going to be, a few more months down the line once adoptions reach a certain level. But I think you should balance it. And the threat to from the sales side is that you push too hard, too fast, and you'll hit that pitfall.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, well, listen, we went over, I know, but like there's a lot in this one. I think this is going to be really, really valuable to people. I'm really excited to hear maybe some feedback from this. And because my brain, I'll end on this, my brain only thinks about DALL-E 3 images now. That's all I can do. I think Andy had me thinking about two different images here, either because it's AI versus AI. So it's either, what is that, Lord of the Rings, thou shalt not pass with the staff. I feel like that's one image. Or maybe we go old school with Monty Python with the bridge keeper and, you know, icky, 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 ba swing, bow, whatever, you know, and how many coconuts can it carry in a swallow? It's one of these. But I think either one of those would be a good representation of what we're talking about today. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is a fun conversation for me. And we will be back tomorrow talking about AI in education. Also another topic that I'm really, really excited to dive into because there's so many cool things happening there. And then we'll be back the rest of the week. So that's it for us, guys. Have a wonderful Monday. Thanks for hanging out with us an extra 10 minutes. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.